Hey there, I'm Sunshine Gray. I am a Christian counselor and life coach. And today, what I want to talk about is how to deal with defensiveness in others. Last time, we talked about how to stop being defensive so we can kind of clean out any of our own patterns of defensiveness. But today, we're going to cover what to do when you're talking with someone who is getting defensive. So, the first thing I want to do is remind you of what defensiveness is. It's a way that we self-protect and deflect uncomfortable feelings and information. So when someone who gets defensive perceives that they're receiving negative or critical attacking information, they will feel defensive and then they act defensively. And the way that looks can sometimes be kind of ugly. When we get defensive, it tends to show up by justifying or making excuses. Sometimes we just shut down the conversation. Someone who gets defensive might point to your flaws or even dredge up the past in order to remember, self-protect. They want to shift the focus away from them because the information that they're hearing is too uncomfortable. So what I want to give you are my 5 best tips, because dealing with someone who is getting defensive is really frustrating. And I want to give you what you can do, because we don't have control over the other person and how they react or respond. We only have control over ourselves. So that is what I want to give you today. Number 1, as Christians, we need to be really prayerful. Don't underestimate the power of prayer. Prayer is so powerful. Pray before you have a conversation. Pray during the conversation. Pray after the conversation. God is working in and through each one of us. Number 2, be deliberate in your delivery. It is really important to deliver hard information, hard truth in a way that is very loving, gentle. I would say avoid making a bunch of you statements, you always, you never. Instead, focus on what your experience is. Use I statements. The other thing that I think is really important is just make your request. When we're offering hard information, it's very helpful to shift after you've made your observation and say, I'd really like it if you, and then fill in the blank. Because then it's just moving it right along. You're making your statement. We don't have to stay in that place. And then we can move on to making a request. Number 3, ask good questions. Seek to understand. So often we make assumptions about the motive of somebody's heart and we act on that, and our delivery becomes harsh because we're making a whole bunch of assumptions. So ask questions. A really good question might sound like this: help me understand, and then fill in the blank. It's less accusing, more gentle, kind of goes with that delivery piece. The 4th tip: stop participating in the problem. So often, remember, let me back up. We talked about how when someone gets defensive, they're pointing to your flaws or they're dredging up the past in an effort to deflect the focus. Then what happens is we get defensive, and then it's a battle of defensiveness. It's crazy making. Don't do it. Don't do that at all. In fact, focus on the main conversation. And that brings me to my 5th point. Don't have 2 conversations at the same time. So if someone is dredging up the past or pointing to your flaws, it's tempting to get defensive in that moment. But what I want you to do is help them shift back to the first topic. And you can validate what they're saying. You know what? It sounds like there's some things I've done in the past that have hurt you, and I want to talk about that. But first, let's finish this conversation. Okay, so be prayerful, be deliberate in your delivery, seek to understand, stop participating in the problem, and don't have 2 conversations at the same time. This is how you deal with defensiveness in others. So if this video was helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe, because we're working on getting more videos up, and I look forward to seeing you next time.